Uh, yeah, all right. So we are recording now. So I'm going to turn this over to Christy Cowgill of Enter Into Calm. I'm going to make you a little pinned highlights, spotlight speaker here, Christy. So
Oh,
you've got the floor. Go for it.
wow. Thank you. Put the spotlight on it, made my head look really big all of a sudden. Oh my gosh. So first of all, Brittany, thank you for having me with your group. And it's so exciting to be here. And I love the fact that I'm going to actually talk about worry, because as I've known you for only like maybe 4 or 5 months now, right? I've been in awe of your talents as a photographer and a portrait photographer. And what comes up for me every time I think of booking a session with you is worry. So I'm going to use some of my own techniques tonight to overcome that, and then have a wonderful session for my birthday. That's what I would really like to do. So anyway, thank you so much. So I really want to provide some value for those who are listening live, and for those who will like tune in later, and really key into some concepts that will help melt away everyday stress. Okay, so we're going to go deep pretty fast, and I hope you're okay with that, because I know we have limited time. But as a hypnotherapist and as a human who has ignored her unconscious mind for a while, I will tell you that your unconscious mind works very quickly. So allow yourself to just be curious as I chat with you. And if you listen, you'll notice and be reassured that all of the answers that you seek are actually within you. So I want to talk about worry. And if you're worried about that topic, don't fear, because let's face it, you and we live in a world that's fraught with worry, do we not? And by the way, I have no idea what worries you have. Perhaps right now, since it is happy hour, and it's always happy hour somewhere, perhaps you're actually feeling very carefree at the moment. But for this moment, let's actually noodle on the word worry. And now, mind you, we could pick any emotion for this chat. We could pick anger or sadness or guilt or hurt, but let's focus on worry. And I invite you to play along. You know, if you have a little stake in the game, it might make this conversation go a little bit better. So just jot down a note with your pen, or if you don't have a pen, just make a mental note and think about what is a worry that you had to work on today. Just jot down whatever comes to mind. And if you can easily identify one worry, just think really quickly, how much time do you think you spent on that worry? And again, don't overthink this. Your answer is going to come to your unconscious mind very quickly. So just write down what that is, for it stores all of our memories. So just to spur some examples though, like things that people typically come to me with worries about is their own health. I mean, and it's sometimes not our own health, but it's the health of the people around us. And I totally get that. And you probably do, because we're amid a pandemic. So we're sending our kids back to school perhaps. And so we're worried about their health, their surges of this virus going crazy in our communities. But even pre-pandemic worry, we always have worried about our health, the health of our family, our loved ones. We might worry about what's going to happen to us if we get symptoms or are put in a health situation. And the other major worry is financial. So keep in mind that worries are oftentimes fear of something that we're going to lose or not getting what we want in life. So when we think financial, it kind of runs the gamut. We could be afraid of losing a job, fear of failing in our business, fear of buying a house, not getting a mortgage. If we have older kids, we could be afraid of them losing their job and not being able to pay their rent. Could be afraid of paying bills. There's all kind of financial fears that will keep people up at night. And that comes into also retirement. We could have fears around retirement, which leads to fears about getting old. And as we get older, commonly reported worries are, what is it going to be like as I age? Will I have enough money? Will my health be maintained? Will I be lonely? Thinking of lonely, we start to recognize their social fears. So whether you're living through those right now, or you want to relive some of the teenage fears, fear of getting into the right crowd or being rejected by people, fear of not being invited to the party, not having a date for that big event, Fear of the person that you are longing for to pay attention to you or wanting to get involved with not being interested in you. So that leads to fears of romance. And romantic fears can definitely be a fear for some. Maybe you're worried that that partner in life really doesn't love you the way that you love them, or love you the way you like them to, or my goodness, the fear of somebody cheating on you. And then you worry about the fears if you have children involved in that relationship, the welfare of the children, and legal fears, and legal fears can then go into IRS fears, and you kind of get it, a whole gamut of things. And that bumps up into fears of the larger culture around us, our larger community, State of the Union, fear of the end of democracy or threats to democracy. I mean, fears of all different types. And I remember when I was little and I was a little kid, I heard that the solar system was going to run out of energy and that it was going to dry up. And at a certain point, we would be living in another ice age. And just imagine that worry. You might have had a similar worry as an 8-year-old child. And you carry that forward into everything that we contend with now. So, wow, you get the picture, right? That worry is huge. So perhaps if you took my suggestion to write down a word, you can kind of look at that word and you can rest assured that if you had a worry, it's an ordinary, everyday stress that we have come to recognize as part of our existence in life. So fear not. I will have some easy solutions for you. But I invite you to recognize that I started with a question about worry, and then I started interchanging worry with fear. Because when you think about it, all worry is fear. And when you hear the word fear, we're all educated enough to know that fear is stress, right? Because you probably heard the term sympathetic nervous system before. I know that you've even used sympathetic nervous system in some of your earlier happy hours here. So, and you come to imagine this typical metaphor of the saber-toothed tiger, right? Coming up and lurching in around the cave woman who's maybe making dinner. And then she recognizes there's a saber-toothed tiger, and all of a sudden it's game on. Sympathetic nervous system is lit up. She's in full fight or flight, right? And that's hardwired. That's a hardwired. And by the way, that's a very adaptive, healthy way to use fear. All of the other things that we started this conversation with, however, are the unhealthy ways that we use fear. And so what does this all mean? Yeah, I've been babbling for a good time here. So I love to pull in, like, what does evidence show us? And there was a very interesting study done on worry. And it was done in 2017. It was a very well done study, and it showed that the average human spends the equivalent of 6.5 years of their life worrying. So that's incredible, like 6.5 years, 6.5 years spent worrying. And it's interesting what they found people worry about. But 40% of the time, people were worrying about things that were, quote, very, very, very unlikely to happen. 40% of the time. And what blows my mind even more, 30% of the time, 30%, people were worried about things that they had done, that had already happened in the past. So 70% of the time, we are worried about something that's either A, not going to happen, or B, has already happened. Can I take some of that time back? 12% of the time, people were worried about a routine health issue, like, oh, my arm hurts. Gosh, should I worry about this? Should I go to the doctor? I don't know. Is it more sore today than it was yesterday? You get that, right? 10% of the time, people were worried about very tiny petty issues, and only a whopping 8% of the time was worry on real concerns. So, take home point, if you've noticed you've been worrying a bit too much, you're not alone, you're in good company. And worry is often called the health thief or the joy robber. And it's sometimes even called an addiction. So the very first step of any addiction is noticing you have a problem, right? Also, it's also noticing that we have to take sometimes baby steps, right? If we're thinking about pumping up our physique, right, and we want to get in shape, maybe ditch baby weight or get to our optimal weight, and we just go to the gym, it's probably not going to be good enough. We're also going to have to stop eating donuts and start paying more attention to our what we are eating and drinking more water and sleeping optimally. So our mental health, our emotional health is no different. It's no different. So seriously, if we could get rid, or if we could get as much as 6.5 years of meaningful, joy-filled life in place of energy-sucking, non-productive worry time, would you want to do that? And we can do that with tiny steps. And what if I shared with you a couple tiny steps that could tame that inner worry wart? You'd want to know, wouldn't you? Wouldn't you be interested in saving some time? Or maybe just learning to sleep better, not being up worrying about the bills? So before I go into some of the concepts, I want to tell you first that I've enjoyed more than 2 decades, and age myself, as a nurse anesthesiologist. That's actually what I do alongside hypnotherapy. And so I love the human body, and I love knowing how it does things and why it does things. But more importantly, I have really enjoyed during my career watching people through probably some of the most tragic events of their life in the emergency room, sometimes on days with surgery that were planned or not planned. I've worked in pain clinics. I see women in childbirth, in emergency C-sections. I see a lot of fear, grief, sadness, and yes, even some joy, because I mentioned childbirth, and that's generally joyful. I see all the emotions. And what I always stand in awe of is how some people are able to navigate those prickly life circumstances with more peace and flexibility in their approach than others. Now, don't get me wrong, I have some wicked awesome drugs to give people to help them calm down, but I'm always amazed by the pharmacy that we have the capacity to access in our own brains. And when I see that in real action, it makes me want to understand how those individuals are more resilient than other individuals. How do they rise above and be a victor instead of a victim, even on their darkest days? How does it link back to resources that they have in their own human space? And they dance in this space so beautifully. So I got more curious about how does that work? And then how could I help others access that resource that we all have? And really, it was an awakening to the fact that this unconscious mind of ours, the one that keeps our breathing going, keeps our heart beating, allows our immune system to hum along. How does that work? Okay, so key concept number 1 is stimulate your vagus nerve. Now, do you all know what that means? Just if I said it. So the vagus nerve, the longest nerve in your body. It goes from your brain to super important organs, your heart, your lungs, and your gut. It is the brain-gut connection. In fact, the word vagus means wanderer in Latin, and it's so appropriately termed for this particular nerve. The vagus nerve is the key part of the parasympathetic nervous system. So the sympathetic nervous system was the fight or flight. Parasympathetic is the rest and digest. When we stimulate the vagal nerve, we get serotonin, dopamine, melatonin, oxytocin flowing through our bloodstream. That's what the parasympathetic nervous system does. And you probably heard some of those hormone terms. These are exact terms that we target with antidepressants and anti-anxiety medications, right? Serotonin, dopamine, melatonin, oxytocin. The sympathetic nervous system runs on cortisol and epinephrine. That's what makes you run from that saber-toothed tiger. So in 2010, researchers really discovered this huge positive feedback loop of people who had high vagal tone, meaning their vagus nerve was being stimulated all the time, was directly correlated to how good their physical and their mental health was, and vice versa. So if you're in good physical and mental health, your vagal tone is humming. And as a matter of fact, studies have shown that vagal tone is passed on from mom to baby. So if moms are pregnant and depressed, anxious, and angry during their pregnancy, they have low vagal tone. So then when their newborns are born, they have low vagal tone and they have low dopamine and serotonin levels. So the most easy way to increase your vagal tone that's portable, personal, and you can take with you everywhere is your breath. And we tend to breathe up here. And I want you to move your breath down into your belly. As a matter of fact, one of the images I like to imagine is taking a balloon and puffing up our stomach as far as it'll go, taking a big deep breath in, and then letting it all out. And that increases parasympathetic right away. And you'll actually, after 2 or 3 breaths, feel more resourceful and oftentimes happier. So the second concept is, alongside that breath, I want you to ask yourself a question. What is something that you like to do? Think of something you like to do, and I want you to specifically think about what it is about that thing that you like to do. So for some people, it's hiking, and it's highly enjoyable because they're in nature, or they're alone, or they're problem solving, or they're uninterrupted. Some people like wine tasting. Why? They enjoy it because they're socializing, they're in a beautiful scene, or because they're tasting rich flavors. They love sewing. Why? Because they're creative, they're making gifts for others, or they're working with their hands. So think about that thing that you like, and then maybe think about another thing that you like. And then think about the last times you've done those things and take a deep breath. And I bet when you do that, you'll feel better and better. And I'm also quite certain when you just started thinking about the thing that you liked, automatically took a deep breath and weren't even aware of it. And now that you're aware, you can't unlearn that. So there's some handy techniques that you could take with you anywhere. Now, the third concept, and yes, I am easing into this conversation strategically. The third concept that is super powerful is that of how you can suggest things to your mind and get it to shift. So I'd like you to, if you would, just reach your arm to the back of you and see how far it'll go. Now take a look, see where that ends up. Okay, great. Perfect. Close your eyes for a minute. And just in your imagination, imagine that that arm can go even further back and point even further back in the room. And now go ahead and move that arm out to the back again, as far as it'll go, and then turn around and look at it. Great. Did it go further than the first time? So you gave your unconscious mind a suggestion. The first time we did this very consciously, the second time we on the unconscious mind said, move it back further. We did it and we got a better result. So that's the difference. We focused our mind, we became absorbed in a task, and we got a better result. I'd like to introduce you to the term hypnosis. That is hypnosis. My goal is to make hypnosis as easy for you as it is powerful. Now, the first 2 things that we did, which was deep breathing and imagining something that you liked, were to allow your mind to shift to the parasympathetic and to the unconscious mind. The third thing we did is what makes hypnosis hypnosis. We gave your mind a suggestion to do something differently. The first time you had moved your arm, it only went so far back. The next time we suggested that it go further, and it did. So I often get a question of, how is hypnosis different than meditation? And that's exactly it. Hypnosis, we give ourselves a suggestion. And hypnosis also is just a relaxed state where you are focused and absorbed. And I want to point out that it is actually a very normal state to be in. So those times that you are out hiking in nature or wine drinking or sewing, if that's what you really enjoy, you are so focused and absorbed in that, you probably don't notice a lot of what's going on around you. There's other times in life that we're focused and absorbed as well, watching TV, sometimes driving. We get into something, a conversation in our own mind, and we bypass the exit. We're reading a good book and we could care less if dinner is burning on the stove. Okay. Anytime that we get absorbed in something, that is a hypnotic state. So hypnosis is a technique that you can do on yourself. Nothing more than giving yourself clear, specific directions on what you'd like to achieve, or you can have a practitioner guide you into that and give you suggestions on how to improve. Because sometimes when we're so close to a problem, like maybe worry, if we are wasting 6 years of our life, sometimes that just takes another expert set of eyes to look at and untangle for you. So if any of you are ready to kick worry to the curb once and for all, I have a special gift for you. I've actually set aside some free consults, and you can talk about worry and fear, or you can ask me any questions about hypnosis. Hypnosis and hypnotherapy is used all the time in medicine and beyond. I've used it in business coaching, but I've also used it to help reduce pain or chemotherapy side effects. So if you're listening to this tonight or on replay, if you drop free consult into the chat with your email address, or if you don't want to post your email address there, just send me a private message with your email. I'll make sure to get you scheduled. And then if you are particularly interested in more like a deeper hypnosis session around worry and fear, I also have a free offer for you and a free gift, and you can download it as early as tonight. So I'll drop that link in the chat, and you will have, I think it's about 20 minutes of my wonderful voice. I'm leading you into nice relaxation and giving you ideas on how to release fear and worry so it doesn't hold you hostage. And oftentimes after just 20 minutes, people just sleep so well, even that night. Just gives your unconscious mind another suggestion on how to tap in to the parasympathetic nervous system instead of staying in that cortisol and epinephrine of the sympathetic. So that's what I wanted to talk about. And I'm happy. I know I always get a little long-winded, and I'm sorry, but I'm happy to answer questions if there's any questions live.
I'd say the only question that we have right now on Facebook, Melinda asked, what was the number 3 thing her kids interrupted her?
Oh yeah, no problem. So number 1, and it's good to review. So number 1, belly breath, right? Number 2 is setting a positive state. What do you like to do, and why specifically do you like to do it? And number 3 is offering a suggestion, right? So the suggestion for our arm, that was an example of move my arm further back. A suggestion for fear and worry would be, okay, calm down. And I gave you a lot of examples of things that people worry about or things that are in the past. I can't do anything about that worry because it's already happened. So put it in a box and let it be. Or you're worried about something that is super, super unlikely to happen, and you can just offer yourself a suggestion, conscious mind, that I know that's unlikely to happen. So I'm going to tell my unconscious mind to just stop thinking about that. So be specific. If you're worried, how would you rather be? Calm, so just tell your unconscious mind, okay, deep breath, imagine what you like to do, let it go. That's probably the easiest thing. Just let it go. You can say calm down, whatever works for you. Creating a more resourceful state. So
awesome.
Great question. And thanks for asking me to review that. I was looking at the time and I was getting nervous.
No problem. was gonna say, you were talking about 6.5 years of our life being spent worrying, and my like immediate reaction was how much of that is in that time period when I'm trying to fall asleep at night.
Yeah. Right.
So I'm curious when it comes to like the suggestions, let's say for sleep, for instance, like I feel like if I were to lie there breathing, telling myself go to sleep, I would just like, it would not work. I feel like I would just get like, I don't know, anxious around. I'm telling myself to sleep and it's not working. Are there other types of suggestions to that might be more beneficial when trying to like help yourself to relax and fall asleep at the end of the day?
Yeah. So really focus on the number 2 thing, the positive state. Like go back and think about something that you like to do, or imagine a place that you like to be, so maybe it's your garden, and just imagine that you're slowly walking through the garden, and then incorporate all of your senses. What do I see? What do I smell? What do I hear? What do I feel? Oh, there's grass below my feet. I'm going to just lie there and get nice and comfortable. And I'm going to take another deep breath. And that's when you'll add in the suggestion. I'm just going to let it go. Right. So again, not telling your mind what you don't want to have happen. Like, I don't want to still be awake. I don't want to struggle with falling asleep. What do you want to be instead? I want to just let it go. I want to relax. And that is enough to like, okay, unconscious mind, let it go, relax. Yeah. Does that help?
It does. Thank
So
you.
it has to be clear, and it has to be in the positive way. Our unconscious mind is often like a 7-year-old, and it wants specific, and it wants to help you, right? It wants to help you. So help it by being specific, but also positive, just like we would with, our 7-year-old children, don't tell them what you don't want them to do, be quiet. Just say, wow, it'd be really nice if you were entertained with this instead. Provide it some coaxing. Because if we focus on not falling asleep, it's going to be like, oh, am I asleep yet? Am I asleep yet? Same with pain, people who are having pain and it's chronic pain. If you wake up and say, oh, I hope I don't have that pain today. Instead, you got to think about what is it that I would want to have instead? What is it that I'd want to have instead? And focus on that. And then just if you keep getting distracted, go back to like just some imagery of a place that you have been on vacation, your last vacation, the most happy memories of that, and just allow that to help also to calm you. To welcome in, again, melatonin is going to be released with those deep breaths. Melatonin is what helps you sleep. Serotonin, dopamine, melatonin, and oxytocin. So yeah, they're wonderful hormones. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. So it looks like Ashley posted her email address in the chat for you for a consult.
Great. Ashley, I'll be reaching out to you.
Yeah, I'm going to do one last call out for questions. There's a little bit of a lag in Facebook. So I'll put that out there in Facebook land. There's a couple of people watching. If anybody has any questions for Christy, feel free to drop them in the chat. Looks like we have a question from Ashley. How do you deal with someone who has OCD?
Yeah, so we just get them into a more resourceful state. It really depends on what are their habits that are causing disruptions during their day-to-day life. But there's specific hypnotherapy for OCD.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right, looks like Melinda is just saying thank you. She's taking lots of notes.
Awesome, Melinda. Good to have you here. Thanks for listening live.
Awesome. All right, cool. Well, I don't see any other questions, but that doesn't mean that they won't come up later. So I'll make sure to tag you in the post on Facebook so that you get notifications of those questions as well.
Great.
And
again, thanks so much.
Yeah, so I know you mentioned the consults and to get their email addresses to you if they're interested in scheduling something. Are there other ways that people can find you? Where else are you?
Yeah, so I am on Instagram and Facebook with Enter Into Calm. Enter Into Calm, CALM. You could also search me by my first name, Christy Cowgill. And the website is enterintoCalm.com. And for that free worry and fear download too, you can go directly to the link that I'll post on Facebook, I guess, and access that. But if you are curious about a free consult, I'll include that link with an email back to you in the next 24 hours.
All right, excellent.
Yeah.
And I know Christy's links are in the Facebook event. But also when I get the replay up on YouTube, I post that with your links as well.
Awesome.
So there will be lots of opportunities for people to get that free download from you. So yeah, I think that's it. I don't see any other questions coming through. So once again, thank you, Christy. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording on this here.